Okay, may we begin? Do I get to do this at the beginning? Okay, I'd love to do roll call. So to my right, I feel like I messed this up last time. Please state your name.
John Sherm. John Sherm.
And John Sherm, are you present?
Present.
Great.
You don't have to do that.
Okay.
Christina does it.
Okay, that's why I'm confused. Okay, sorry, Christina.
One of us usually, I actually usually do it. I think council meetings, it's usually the clerk.
Okay,
But,
that's way
yeah,
better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think we have done it that way before once.
Okay.
In any case,
Okay.
I'll take the roll call.
Thank you.
Committee member John Sherm,
Present.
committee member Nicholas Markman,
Present.
chair Charlie Harrington,
Present.
and council liaison Jane Cooper. And we have received communications from our other two committee members that they cannot make the meeting.
Great. Let's move on to the next item. So item number 2, this was an idea from last time, new member introductions. John, Marika, and I went last time, and Nick, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself, state your interest in joining this committee. The idea is for John and others to know why you joined this and who you are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For the record, not a new member. I think at this point, I'm actually the longest standing member, which
Indeed.
is kind of crazy. But Nick Markman, I think when I was asked to join the committee, I was relatively new, still in I don't know if it was the depths, but the tail end of COVID. And I have 2 young children and looking for outlets for them, and found my way to this committee. And love the outdoors, love the lanes, love the parks, love the community generally. So it was a way I could get back.
Great, thank you. So maybe in the next meeting, if council member or committee member Wayne Stacy is available, I'd love to have him introduce himself.
Yep, and I think he's the last one to do an
Great.
introduction.
Fantastic. All right, moving on to comments from the committee chair. Hello. Hope everyone had a nice Thanksgiving. And I appreciate everyone, John and Marika coming to the special meeting last month. That was really helpful. And it's nice to be meeting regularly as a crew. And I think that we will have an agenda item to solidify the rest of the calendar, which is awesome. Only thing I'd add is the sunscreen station presentation would be great to be able to announce that and incorporate that into the schedule when the presentation is ready and the presenter is here. So I think we can move on. Maybe I'll suggest that in terms of scheduled items, we can start with the calendar. So item 7, we could do first. Then we could go to the discussion on lanes after that, and then go into the report in old business. If that's acceptable, I think that could work.
Yep, and then when would the presentation go?
After any of those items. So we would complete the item and then switch over to that. So it could come after item 7, could come after item 5 or item 6.
Okay, yep, got
Okay.
it. Yep.
All right, great. Love to turn it over to Tony for item number 4.
Thank you, Chair. Not much to report since the last meeting. Maintenance work has mainly revolved around typical winter activities, which is mostly clearing up leaves in the parks as well as the streets and storm drains. There has been some hedge trimming and some aerating of the turf in the fields that happened a little later than expected because of weather. There's not much to report on that front. There is something to report in our staff. We have a new crew member, and he started last week. So he is still learning the ropes, but our maintenance crew is now fully staffed.
Great.
And that's it from me.
Thank you. Can I add one thing to the report?
Please do.
So there were some of the gates at the playground.
Right.
And one of them was, the handle was broken, but they both got fixed. And then one, maybe I'll let you carry. Do you want to finish it? Something happened again?
Yeah, well, so there's actually discussion on the playground in new business. I was going to kind of include it all in there, but
Oh, yeah, we can cover it then.
we can, yep. Sounds
Okay.
good. Cool.
I had a question. I remember last year, the path, the gateway path along the Richardson Bay last year had all those potholes. I remember you bringing that up and we did those repairs. Is it expected that that repair works will carry us through the winter or how long does that last?
So the material is a DG, degranulated or decomposed granite, and it really needs ongoing maintenance. So those repairs, improved it, got it up to scratch, but a few more rains and that we'll start seeing puddles again.
Yeah.
So it will be an ongoing
Okay.
maintenance project, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Does the committee have any questions for Tony? Okay. Great. Would love to move on.
And we should ask for public
Oh,
comment as
okay.
well.
So I didn't know, should I have asked it for 1, 2, and 3 as well, or is just number 4 the first one for public comment?
He could say for any of the previous items, is there any public
Great.
comment?
Okay. For any of the previous items, is there any public comment? Christina?
I have no public comment on the Zoom platform.
From the room? Thank you. Okay, perfect. Let's go into scheduled items. As discussed, we will shift the order here. So I'd love to go to what is listed as item number 7, discussion and approval of the meeting calendar for 2025. We're all flipping right now to what I believe. Do we know, is that in here? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, Tony, would you like to chat about this or would you like me to read through your proposed dates?
There's not much to add to the staff report, except that the date from March was adjusted because Marika asked if it could be changed. And I sent out an email and it seems like that date works fine for everybody. So that was the only change from the last meeting.
Okay. Maybe we can go through them one by one. How are folks looking on the 6th of March?
I'll look at.
Okay, everything looks good. Jane? Okay, and I am going through right now. All right. Great. Okay, everything looks good for me too. Should we, this is a recommendation from Tony. I'd like to see if anyone would like to make a motion to approve Tony's recommendation for the calendar for the rest of the year.
I'll motion to approve.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. Great. This is great. Now we're done with this one. Let's move on to item number 5, the discussion on lanes. There's 3 sub bullets. The first one is on lane repair and maintenance. Tony, if you could walk us through that, that would be great.
Yep, I can give a quick update. Cedar Lane has had some repair work done. The top platform of the stairs as they approached Bella Vista, there was a gap opening up between the top of the stairs, the concrete platform and the asphalt road. And so that repair was made a few weeks ago. Basically, asphalt was cut back and a concrete lip was added to the top of that landing. And the other set of stairs where work is progressing is Harry B. Allen steps. We have recently had a survey of a topographic survey of the hillside done. We're working with the geotechnical engineer to provide recommendations for stabilizing the hill at the base of the stairs. And that's what's needed so that we can retain the wall for those posts to be held into the ground. Yeah, at this point, we have an estimate for the work, and we do have some funds that were donated graciously to the city last year. So we are hoping that we can get going with that work in the summer. The big question mark is permits and permitting, because it's on the seashore. And you know, we've got a few different agencies that we have to deal with to make sure that we can go ahead with that work, and possibly some environmental mitigation that needs to be done. But at this point, we're optimistic that in 2025, we might be able to get that completed. And then other maintenance work has been done on the lanes, typical fall and winter work, which is clearing leaves and giving them a good blow and get them into shape for the rains.
Great. Okay. Any questions for Tony from the committee?
None.
Thank you.
Fantastic. I remember there used to be some like brooms and things on some of the lanes, and I don't think that was funded by the city, but I always thought that was very cute. Did that work? Did you ever find people taking a broom, sweeping as they go? Yeah, I've seen some nods. Yeah, it'd be really cool to get that back.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a city kind of program, but I think McLean Lane is
Yeah,
one that comes
that's
to
the one I'm
mind.
thinking of. Yeah.
For sure. It's still there, so yeah, hopefully it is being used.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's maybe something we can expand on.
Okay. I'll open it up if there's no other comments to the room for comments. Please.
So it was on most of the lanes, and almost no brooms are left except maybe one. And it was very effective at the time.
Okay.
And they also did sort of neighborly, let's clean out our lane closest to us, once or twice a year. And
Cool.
some neighbors would show up with, blowers and brooms and do a little tidying.
That's great. It would be neat to see how that was set up. I don't know if there's tiny brooms located somewhere that we could do, or if we have to buy some, but that could be something maybe to discuss in our next meeting or sooner.
Yeah, I could
Okay.
find out, yeah, just what in sort of previous staff members might have some idea of how that was set up.
Okay. I think I remember seeing Belvedere Community Foundation insignia near the broom on McLean. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That feels like a nice low cost thing to get the community re-engaged in sweeping these things off. Okay. And then with Harry B. Allen, I was curious, the repair work include, I feel like the posts are like rusting in the water. Is there a solution that would prevent that when you're thinking about rebuilding it?
Yes, so it would be replacing those posts and probably using a more resistant material, corrosion resistant material.
Okay.
Yeah, there's, I guess, a couple of different things going on there with different metals in contact with each other, kind of speeding up the corrosion process. But yeah, we would definitely include that in the repair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I can ask for comment now, just on sub item 1. Christine, is there any comment on the Zoom platform?
There is not.
Okay. Any other comment from the room? Okay. I also, yeah, I will return to this. I forgot to ask for questions on the last one on the calendar. Okay, let's move on to item number 2, which is the Park Lane construction update.
And we don't have much to update yet because construction hasn't begun, but the project is out for bid. And the closure date, the deadline for bids to be received was extended to December the 20th. So we don't have, we haven't selected a contractor yet. But in the meantime, we are working on changing the elevation of the platform, pushing it up the hill a few feet so that we can try and preserve as much of the view as possible with the new roof of the building in front of it. And I will update the committee as soon as I have more concrete plans for the work.
Is that a pun? Okay, any questions from the committee on Park Lane status update? Jane, anything? I think it'd be fun to schedule a kickoff or something when it's ready. So we can, I'm sure we can discuss that in our next meeting.
Yes, definitely. It would be great to have some kind of ceremony.
Yeah, I was reading, I recall at Centennial Park, I think when that opened, there was some sort of like museum tour that ended there with lemonade, and there were some cute pictures with like, 80s outfits of people enjoying lemonade in there. So something like that could be neat. Okay. Great. Any public comment on Park Lane construction update, Christina?
No, we don't have any public comment on that item.
Is there any public comment from the room? Thank you. Okay. Now we're moving on to item number 3, the Lanes Committee activities. This one is me. So Marika and I are on the Lanes Subcommittee. We discussed this in our last regular meeting, and we have had 2 calls chatting through the way that we plan on approaching gathering the info for the Lanes Subcommittee. This is motivated by the idea of creating a sort of recreational walking map as maybe an artifact that comes out of this that could be available in the library or in town hall. And the other thing that we did was we put together a lanes survey template, if you will. And so we went back and looked in some of the historical records, and we found that this had been done several times in the past. I think maybe Nick, you've seen these before, but I think there's one done in the 90s, there's probably one done in the 80s, and these provided useful input for Public Works and others to say, okay, these need repairs or these are looking good. So I have a spreadsheet that I just want to show of what the current fields are that we're thinking of looking at. My goal is to see if anyone in the committee or in the public has suggestions on additional items that they'd like to see indexed as we go about this.
Is that the spreadsheet you gave me?
That's the spreadsheet, yeah. Okay. So if you'll indulge me on nerding out on spreadsheets. So I was doing this in a different platform and kind of neat color coding. But the idea basically would be a record of each of the items that is listed in, oh, thank you. This would be a record of each of the items listed in Exhibit 6, which I believe is the Parks, Open Spaces and Lane map of the Belvedere General Plan. So you got all the lanes here, including those unnamed ones. These are the numbers located in that map. This is sort of a hand-rolled location, maybe a link to some other document on the history of it. And then these are the major fields that we were thinking about. Is this lane accessible? Yes or no? So this might mean, is there a staircase, or is it a trail, or is it just you can't access it whatsoever? A thought we had was for evacuation route potential. I don't know if that's subjective or not, but it might be nice to deem some of these lanes have access to water. So, does it have water access? What is the current state of the water access? So Is it deeded to have water access, but it's not currently available? But maybe Harry B. Allen both has water access and you can also access it. This field was how frequently folks are using them. I don't know if that feels somewhat subjective. So some of these fields might be just based on the surveyor's observations. And then a rating from 1 to 5 and a couple other things. Overall condition of the lanes, the stairs, the railings, the landscaping, subjective take on the view, whether or not it has a sign, the condition of the sign. I do think that that could be something neat, even if we're just looking into restoring some of the ones that are faded away. Whether or not there are assets on it. Some of the lanes have benches or landings, various notes. And then this will just be a check mark of whether or not the analysis was done, who did it, when did they go, including some photos. And then in the previous studies, I've seen folks link to or have several like videos or photos as they walk up and down them. So we did this for all the lanes. We also listed, I think given because we'll be sort of walking around, the parks and the public parks and facilities. And everything here is from that exhibit 6. I added 2 things that I just didn't see on there, which was that cute little viewing platform above SFYC. I thought we could just list out and have someone take some photos of, and then the strip itself, while designated in blue, I thought we could write some notes on that. So that's the main thing. I wanted to first see if the committee had any comments on this as a template for the survey, or if you have any suggestions for other columns or fields.
It looks really helpful. And as you were going through the columns, the ones where you had kind of multiple questions, I was wondering if we should maybe just kick those into columns. So like list out the assets in case we need to filter on it in the future, or you know, there's probably value in each individual one having a Boolean.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And then the other question I had was about evacuation route potential. You have it as a Boolean there. Is there more from like the block captains that they might want us, like, do we have to coordinate there? Is there stuff they might want us to catalog? And is there anything that maybe the city is looking at that could help us inform that evacuation route, yes or no?
Yeah. Jane or Tony, do you have any thoughts on that second point?
The only thing to add there really is that evacuation route potential, it's almost a default yes. Yeah, they're almost all lanes are a means of egress, you know, because, you know, we think of sort of a wildfire or an earthquake, but it's also individual homes may have, you know, something going on if there's a fire in one place with a lane nearby. So yeah, I think they could all be considered evacuation routes.
Yeah, and I think the importance of that to me, and I'm glad to see it in there, is that it really fits in with the whole idea of safety, because if the lanes don't have railings, if the steps are chipped, you know, and it impacts someone actually using them relatively easily. I think that's great that, yes, it's a potential evacuation, but you know, I'd love to see stair condition maybe moved over next to, is it accessible or something like that, so that we keep in mind one of the reasons or several of the reasons why they're there. Is everything in your list what we would be looking at through Parks, Open Space and Lane? Does your list? I'm worried about, I'm wondering about China Cabin, because I think that's under the auspices of the Landmark Society. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
I
that
think that's
we,
fair.
I don't think we have anything to say about China Cabin.
The only reason I left it here was mainly because these were the items. in
Oh, on the
key
map.
on the
Okay,
map.
okay.
I
Right.
think similarly, the Sailing
Just so it
Society,
doesn't
yeah.
seem that I think we have to be careful if it looks like it's something that we might have to take on or
I think
cover.
maybe we can have another column, which is who's the responsible party for this. Just because I think it is interesting that these are listed in Parks, Open Spaces, Lanes map, but then maybe they're managed by maybe it's like managed by, we can say the Sailing Society is managed by the Belvedere Sailing Society. Yeah, you know, I don't know who manages the Wildlife Bird Sanctuary in Richardson Bay, but it's probably some agency or something like that.
don't know if it is managed actually,
Okay.
but I'm sure it's within somebody's jurisdiction for sure. Yeah, but that's a great question, actually. Yeah,
For now, I'll add a column, which is who do we believe is the managing body for this?
That someone might come and say, oh, it needs repair. So now you guys have it on your list, so you can help pay for it.
Yeah, there's not enough birds in the bird sanctuary.
Charlie, I had a question. Is the
Yeah.
lane, is E, column E, is the lane accessible? Is that a proxy for like, is it even developed?
That's my thought there. Yeah.
And should we just say that?
Is the lane developed or not?
Yeah, because accessibility means like, can you, like a lot of these I've run around and, you know, especially when I first moved here, they're just non-existent.
Yeah,
So maybe clarify.
yeah, I'll change the
that
wording there.
it's- No,
Doesn't
yeah,
exist.
there's nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Is
think
land
that kind of
developed?
leads to a question for me also is why do we even have it? Because it's a non-existent lane. It's unnamed, non-existent. Is there a reason that we should have it? Or is it just city property? It can be, a parcel can be considered city property without it being a lane,
Yeah.
if indeed it's not a lane.
I think some of this can come out of the study. I think
Yeah.
Yeah.
looking at photos of it, maybe, for example, unnamed 28 might be like a path you could go down or something to get to the water. I am a fan of unnamed 29 myself, but I think it'll be fun once we have photos of these. Okay.
Charlie,
those were
Charlie, one
great.
more question.
Oh, yeah, John.
Who will evaluate the level of public use? Because I could see that being very valuable to us in the future if we get into a place where we need to prioritize maintenance and, what are arteries for evacuation?
I don't have a suggestion for this. This one, I did feel like was more squishy. So I'm open to suggestions. Yeah.
I see a lot of value in that information. I don't know if that's something that's tracked by the city or.
Well, I mean, if it's an evacuation thing, it shouldn't be use. It should be density or potential use. So looking at actual homes and things like that, because if you're truly looking at it from an evacuation or a hazard standpoint, the use should be zero until that event. But yeah, blend that with recreational use as well.
Or
Yeah.
maybe we need to track both.
Yeah. I'll talk to Marika about that, and well, I don't know if it's silly, but, and I don't think we'd want to clutter it, but I'm thinking of like airport bathrooms, like the little rate, you walk by, you tap it and you can rate it or something. I don't think we're quite there yet. but- Okay.
Charlie, one other thing to add, I guess, is the condition. There's overall condition and then stairs condition, railings condition. Yeah, I don't know if you're thinking that there might be some kind of rating scale for each of those with.
Yeah, we had
you
1
know,
through 5, one being the
Okay.
lowest.
Yeah,
Maybe it'd be easier to do 3 in this because I want this to be as I don't want it to be as subjective. Obviously, it's in the eye of the beholder, and to a certain extent, photos
Yeah.
maybe will speak louder than this rating.
yeah, I guess just sometimes you may have a railing, for example, that's in fairly good condition, but it's not actually that functional because it's, the wrong height or it's quite far away from the stairs. And I don't know if there's a way to capture those kind of conditions as well. Yeah. Maybe or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I think each of these things, I'm now seeing the purpose in some photos and some just like comments about it. Like you could go through, let's say, John, you're assigned to Golden Gate Lane or something. You could go up, down, and like say the stairs. Yes, there are railings, but they're too high or something like that. So maybe that's one way you can give context to the person's rating.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Some space for notes, I guess.
Space for
Yeah.
notes. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And Marika and I were thinking about starting this study in January with the idea of trying to chug through it, in January, if not into February. Okay. Okay, I'll open it up for comments from the public on the Zoom platform.
No public comment on the Zoom platform.
Okay, is there any comments from the room? Okay. Well, thank you for this. I'm excited. Appreciate the time. And it would be great. I recognize we forgot to open up the last topic on the calendar to the public. So I want to see if there's any public comments on the last item.
Sure, well, I don't have any, or
Okay,
you want to
great.
call for them?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to our sunscreen presentation. Thank you.
Get it switched over.
Yeah.
Are you fine from right there? Okay.
How do I switch it? Okay. Maybe you have to put it in like present. Or maybe it's. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. My name is Sahithya Rajapathy, and I'm a freshman at San Domenico School. I've lived in Tiburon my entire life, and I love being active and spending time outdoors in the sun. But one thing I consistently notice is that people lack sun protection. This is a major public health issue, but we can be a part of the solution. So today I will be presenting on creating a sun-safe community with sunscreen dispensers. I'm an ambassador of Impact Melanoma's National Youth Council for Skin Cancer Prevention, and our mission is to create sun-safe communities through increasing awareness of skin cancer, increasing access to sunscreen while saving lives. We collaborate with the CDC and have been a leading nonprofit organization in this field for over 25 years. Now you may be wondering, why is sunscreen even essential? Well, just one deep burn from childhood can instantly set one on a path to melanoma. All of the children that play at McKegney Field every day are without sun protection. All of these children are susceptible to developing skin cancer. Skin cancer kills 2 people per hour, yet it is the most preventable cancer. I conducted a survey at my school, including responses from over 200 students, and the #1 reason people don't wear sunscreen is that they forget. I surveyed the town and I found the areas that are most vulnerable to sun exposure and contain the highest foot traffic. All of these areas starred on the map are just some examples of where a dispenser could go. Skin cancer is the most preventable cancer, and by installing sunscreen dispensers in our community, we are reducing everyone's risk. The town already addressed one public health issue with doggy bag dispensers, and we can address this one in the same way. Now, we've already addressed the importance of this issue, but you may be wondering about the cost. One dispenser costs $200, so 8 dispensers would cost $1,600. Going forward, to replace the sunscreen inside of it every year, it would only be $600. I am looking to you all as a town to fund this essential need in our community. I'm a student activist, and by leading this project, we are creating a broader sun-safe community. When people go to use the dispenser, they will make a new friend while preventing cancer for themselves. We as a town are stronger together, and by making a commitment to the health of our citizens, we are saving lives. Thank you.
We are open to answering questions.
Yes, I would love to.
Are there any questions?
I'd be interested if you could flip back to the map on your proposed location.
Oh, for sure.
And the proposed Belvedere location is on the. No.
These are just some examples.
Okay.
But Belvedere, it could go in the park right
Yeah.
next to here. The path and more.
This is great. What, I'm curious, have you given a similar discussion to Tiburon?
I have not.
Yeah.
Does the program you're working with, the yellow designed, is this a program that's in place at any other cities, or does Impact Melanoma provide these as kits?
They provide the dispensers with the sunscreen inside.
Okay, and are there local communities in Marin that have taken them up on this at this point?
I haven't seen it in Marin. I have implemented it at my school.
Okay. And do you have feedback from the school as to the usage?
Yes, all the sports teams use it every day. It's in a very convenient location by our pool. A lot of kids use it at recess too, so it gets a lot of use.
Okay. Any other questions?
Have the refills been faster than expected initially?
Well, it's a 1,000 milliliter bag of sunscreen, so it lasts about a year. I put the one in at my school in last April and I haven't refilled it yet.
Great.
Getting granular here, but do we know, is there optionality for types of sunscreen?
Yes, the main one that they provide is a hypoallergenic sunscreen, but there are different options.
Seems like a pretty worthy project. I'm glad you've taken it up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a question maybe for Jane or Tony with these sort of things. Do we have any examples of something like this? Like, I assume the doggy bag equivalent is, I think that's a good comp. Probably the city pays for the doggy bag replacements and things like that. Did we go through something like this during COVID for hand sanitizer locations in public places?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't recall hand sanitizing.
There were.
Were there? Oh, out.
In community park, I don't.
Oh,
think there's a
okay.
Process over there, just got
Yeah.
Plopped there.
put there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions I would have is, you know, if it's accessible for kids, is it gonna, at a park with children, one of the issues I know that we face is the water fountains and the kids
Yeah.
put dirt in it and clog everything up. And then it's a lot of work for Public Works to clean it and keep the water fountains functioning.
Or greasing up.
Or greasing up and
equipment.
getting, you know, getting it on everything or spilling it onto the ground and then having it be a grease puddle.
Mhm.
So I think there are a few things we need to think about more carefully and spend time looking at it. I love the concept of it and thank you very much for coming and presenting. I'm just thinking, knowing some of our younger teenagers that we have
Yep.
that hang around the park on Friday nights. Not quite sure how. And, you know, that would be a major impact if we put in the funds to buy this and then have to worry about it. Maybe we can think of specific locations that it would make more sense.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you hadn't talked to Tiburon yet. Are you planning on talking to Tiburon?
Yes.
And when is that happening?
I'm not sure yet.
Got it. Cool. Appreciate it. How should we best contact you if we have kind of follow-up questions and
I can give you my email. I actually have these little booklets.
Oh, wow.
of
That's
presentation. And I have the essentials for you guys too.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Like I'm not sure.
This is perfect.
Thank you.
This is great.
Thank you.
And is there any timing requirements on this, or is it, you know, when we can get our act together? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I did have one quick question, and that is, if we were to do something like pilot the program with just having one dispenser, is it possible to buy them individually? Oh, okay. I didn't know if it came, because you had talked about 8, so I wasn't sure if it came in a
No.
package.
You can buy one at a time for sure. And I know you're talking about the list of the dispenser, I would be happy to maintain it. The dispensers also have, art under, so it catches the sun's.
Oh,
And
great.
it's not a pump, it's automatic, so it gives you a specific amount every time.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Pilot does seem interesting. Does anyone want to take on just doing a little bit of groundwork, maybe talking to Tony about that?
I'll take that on.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much. Is there any public comment on the Zoom platform, Christina? On this?
There is not.
Anything from the room? Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Appreciate what you know.
Okay, let's move on to what is tagged as item number 6, which is the report to City Council. So this one's me again. In our last special meeting, we went through a slide deck that I prepared, sort of talking about the proposed priorities and the ground. Nick, I know you weren't there. Hopefully you caught up on the minutes, but the idea was winnowing down to a more focused, specific, actionable, strategic set of recommendation. I think last year and in years past, we had the feedback that we were basically asking for too much and it was unclear about what to do.
Yep.
So we honed in on 2 things. One was an idea to take Artist's View and put a viewing platform focusing on safety at the top of that, which I added some details in this letter. Happy to go through that, but there's some interesting reasons why it makes sense to tackle this that we talked about from a financing perspective with some funding, from a historic perspective, given that it'll be the 50-year anniversary, and also the safety issue of folks not being able to enjoy it because of the busy road. So that was the other one. And then the second one was focusing on lanes again. And I've listed here in the letter, basically the letter is just a more formal version of that presentation. I think it's in a decent place right now. The only thing I was thinking about adding was just more specifics from Tony on like specific requests for lane by lane to see if we knew and could be that specific. And I'll turn it over to Tony in a sec to see if we could do that. I saw last year that in our meeting, we approved the, I think we approved just the 2 recommendations and then Jenna followed up on finishing the letter, but I'd also be opening to just approving the letter subject to making 1 or 2 more edits on the specifics around lanes.
And when is this being presented again?
Sometime in January, do we know, Jane?
We have like a month.
City council meetings are the 2nd Monday of every month.
Okay,
Yeah, I think in the changes to the charter that we just made at end of February was the sort of by the end of February, basically was.
Yeah, we
the-
tried to leave it open,
guideline.
so there wasn't a specific date, so
Okay.
it could go on depending on what goes on and how many changes you make. It could go in the January one or the February one. The only thing you need to remember is it has to be submitted, in advance so that it gets public notice.
yeah,
Yep, and the other thing is that you want to kind of get in under the door of before the budgeting process starts
You're right.
within the city. So, yeah.
okay. Well, I would love to try to target that January meeting if we can, which would be great to approve this today, if we could.
And apologies for not making the special meeting last month. So I won't, reserve some of my questions, but perhaps we should ask for comment from the public.
Yeah. And maybe first I'll see, Tony, do you have specifics that we should, like, what's your thought on adding more specifics on the actual lanes in item B?
I think your note on the lanes committee or subcommittee in
Yep.
there is a good way to leave it, basically. I think recommendations coming via the subcommittee would be a nice kind of route for recommendations to come.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think at this point, I think we already have quite a few projects lined up for lanes. We've got Park Lane and then it'll be Centennial Park, which is Hawthorne Lane. So you know, and we already have the Harry B. Allen steps work that's going on there, and Cedar Lane is going to have more work done on that. So, yeah, I think, you know, sort of adding to that list might, it's not really realistically going to happen in the next year for any kind of work to go ahead. And I don't think, and I think they are kind of prioritized already for kind of the condition that they're in, more or less.
Okay.
Until we hear from the subcommittee, the
Yeah, I
lane
think,
subcommittee.
I feel like
yeah.
that makes sense to me. And we'll try to get that, the goal is to get the subcommittee study done by the end of Q1. Okay, I'll turn it over to Zoom first. Are there any public comments?
There are no public comment.
Any public comments on this item from the room? No, okay. Are there any further questions or motions regarding this?
No, I'll just comment that I like the paring down and the focus.
Yeah, same for me, and I think it well represents the conversation we had last month.
Fantastic. Okay, are there motions to approve the letter?
All motion to approve.
Charlie, sorry, one thing to add is in the report as it is, the funding that was, the number that's in there.
Yes.
I need to update, and I have the numbers here, but if it's okay with you, I can just email them to you, or we can make the edits in the report before it goes to council.
Perfect. Yeah, we can take care of that tomorrow.
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
Tony, are you aware of any private funds that could be used or referenced in this recommendation? I thought we had some artist view funds. Maybe I'm getting conflated with the Harry B. Allen stairs.
There's a grant that is available to the city for this kind of project. And so
Sorry, I'm talking about actual people.
donations.
Yeah, donations.
I'm not aware of any
Okay.
and I checked with Helga actually.
Okay.
And she looked in her records. She doesn't have any specific to Artist
Okay.
View.
One of the things I was thinking, I believe I put it in here, was that by being focused on this singular project, looking to the community for additional funding, I'm anticipating would be easier because it's more clear what we're asking for.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we'll follow up tomorrow to finalize that's the number. Okay. Great. Motions to approve? Or any motions on this item?
Guys, one more question.
Yes, John.
If we're asking the community for funding, do we need to put that in here? Maybe that's a question for Jane.
Here's what I have. I can read that line. With the core funding of the state grant in place, along with the community's new take on a singular focus project, we expect any additional funding required will be more readily available from the community. So the way I phrased it was not that there would be an expectation of this, but it could be something that we could contribute to. I think Marika had mentioned as well that she's very involved with prior fundraising efforts. So I think it's something I'm excited to engage on.
But we don't need to put a target or anything.
I think also we can recall that we have a wonderful community foundation that likes to do matching grants. So the only thing we need to recall is that they have 3 times per year when you can put in for the grant. And I'm not positive. I know the next one is March. And then I think it might be in summer and then one in fall. So September, October. Tony knows the months better than I do. But there are 3 a year. So at any point that we're moving forward and it seems appropriate, since the city is required to put in 20% to get the grant funds, I would think that that could be a nice idea of using that as matching funds.
Yeah.
So, so that we have that opportunity as well as then going beyond as needed for individuals.
Thank you.
Cool.
I'll motion for approval.
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Fantastic. I'm very excited. Thank you all. I think this is, no, and I do think that it helps having this special meeting. Like if we were only doing this 4 times a year, it is harder to do this sort of stuff, but
It's nice to
No.
have that pre-work or pre-read.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay.
But just a quick reminder to ask for public comment as well.
I believe I did.
Oh,
I
you
did.
did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, yeah. Okay. We are on to new business, number 8. Tony, discussion on community park playground, please.
Thank you, Chair. And this is really just a follow-up on some questions that we had and an issue that we had with one of the gates of the playground. And we're able, with the very helpful help from our council liaison, Jane Cooper, we're able to get a contractor out there much sooner than anticipated. And the work is not complete, but the gate is open and it's not locked anymore. So yeah, where we are with it is that the latch is working. And we have the closers, the automatic closers for both gates, and those need to be installed. But for the time being, the gates are both operating and the work was completed. So yeah, I will update you at the next meeting on whether the closers have been installed and are functioning. I've asked our associate engineer, Chris Barry, to join us for a couple of the other questions that we received about the playground, mainly the mounds in the pour-in-place matting and the shade structure that's out there. Chris was involved with the construction of the playground, and so he can let us know where things left off, because some of these were brought up at the time, some of these questions. So I'll hand it over to Chris right now.
Thanks, Tony. So yeah, regarding the mounds, there's about, I think Tony was talking about the mounds nearest the tan bark area. There was some kind of concerns about their tripping hazards for people running around. That's what I first say, you know, DPW, we haven't received any hazard requests or notices from the public that I'm aware of since it's been open in the last two years. But they were originally designed to be 6 inches to 12 inches in height and 6 feet in diameter. There were some design changes in that area just due to constructability, the amount of concrete that was there. They had to shorten the distance just due to the concrete creeping into the existing play structure, and they had to have enough separation for fall heights on there in that area. So in some locations, I think there's about originally 5 mounds to be installed, and a couple of them are back to back. So with the 6 feet in diameter, it'd be about 12 feet. And then, so they had to eliminate 1 or 2 mounds in order to fit them all in, to fit the mounds in the area without creeping onto the new boat structure and then any other new equipment. So that was approved. That was brought by the contractor at the time. It was, you know, accepted and by the designer, RHAA. I think they're out of Mill Valley. And then Robert, the public works director at the time, Robert Zadnik, and I met with them, and we kind of discussed that and how to deal with that issue. And then, because the mounds at the time, they were a big selling point for the Parks and Open Space Committee. So they wanted to keep those. And if you go out there now, they're kind of a different color, and that was just due to originally when they installed them with the concrete mounds, it's just due to the slopes and the diameter, it was slumping a lot. So that's why they had to change it too, just to get the right design in there to configure it. So they wanted to keep those. So that's why it's kind of a little, it's like right now it's got yellow, brown, and a little green. It's trying to keep it with the dune theme, the sea theme, in order to replace that section. So that's regarding the mounds.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question about, thank you, Chris. I imagine that you have not received the hazard complaints because people don't really know how to lob hazard complaints
Okay.
in. My daughter has tripped on those so many times.
Okay.
And I'm just kind of remarking, I'm not sure what the purpose of them was. Maybe aesthetically they looked different when they were larger, but I don't think, my personal take is most parents of young toddlers would be very happy to see those go away. And I don't know if that's possible at this point, but if that's not possible, maybe we could outline them in some way so that it's more clear, especially the one that looks like sand, some way of outlining them to make it clear that this is coming up. I think especially if you like the sort of early walkers to early runners, I've seen a lot of kids just tumble. And you don't want to tumble, especially if you're coming from the wood chips, you could tumble into the boat, which is, you could bang your head on that or something like that.
Have there been any injuries? I'm just kind of curious.
I've not heard of any injuries, but I've definitely seen my own daughter eat it, if you
Okay.
will.
I haven't heard of any injuries, but I've seen not just children, I've seen, adults, elders fall in that spot. And I think it is concerning. There may not be an avenue for a formal complaint, but I also wouldn't want to wait for something,
Yeah.
someone to break an arm or worse.
So
Are there
just to,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, just to chime in, and are we talking specifically about the kind of the tan colored mounds close to the bark chips?
And by the little dolphin thingies.
Okay, yeah. And just to chime in on the design, I believe the ones around the dolphin are the idea is to sort of resemble waves. And I was thinking that the color changes on that are much more clear. The contrast is much higher, so they're a little bit more visible. Whereas the sand one is definitely a lot more kind of easy to trip over. Yeah. So are we talking? Are we talking about the mounds in general, or do you think there are specific mounds that are more of an issue?
I'll defer to Charlie. I've seen people wipe out on all of
Yeah.
the aforementioned.
I seen, yeah, all the mounds are, I would consider dangerous.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Chris, are there options at this juncture, not to remove them, but to make them more visible?
I mean, well, one way to make them visible is to change the color.
Hmm.
I mean, or if you're going to make them higher, or I mean, that would tear them out, putting more concrete in there, and then as you add the height, you have to expand the slope.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of depends on what design you'd want. These were the designs that the Parks Committee had at the time.
Mhm.
That's what I mean. We went with that they approved, and Robert. But
Is
I mean,
color
so but
change-
what was that?
is color change an option other than just, somebody with a can of spray paint? I mean, is there like a way to change those easily, or do you know?
Not easily. So it's a port in
Yeah.
place material. So
Yeah.
that's why if you go to like the sand dunes, those tan colored
Yeah.
areas, you'll see like they'll have green in them because they were replaced. Those were replaced, but the colors never match. It's kind of like concrete a little bit. Like it's never going to match exactly the same. You'll see the
Mhm.
seams, so it's not as seamless. So they recommend kind of making it a different color, or like a blend to make it look like it's to help provide like a cohesive look. So they added green a little bit to add like for a grassy look, kind of like a grass in the sand dunes, to make it look kind of the aesthetic that they were going for with the sea and beach theme. So I mean, you can do it. It would just have the footprint might be a little bigger. That's it. But
I would definitely not make them bigger, if anything.
no, I mean like
I see
the area where you would have to, like the tear out area. Maybe you might
I
have
see.
to creep
Okay.
into something, the non-sloping part.
It sounds like it would be a big endeavor to rip all that up and like shave them down. It seems like that's currently out of the question to get rid of
Is
them.
there concrete under each of the mounds that make them a mound?
These ones it's like it's the port in place material, like the foam underlay that gives them the mound.
So removing
these-
the mounds, is that a huge job? It's not tearing out concrete, right? It would just
It
be,
wouldn't be tearing out concrete, no.
okay.
In order to go higher to make them more stand out, if you wanted to make them stand out more, that would involve concrete. Because right now they're at the max for the port in place foam material, underlying foam material height.
I think it'd be
If you
nice
make a
to-
flat, you
I
can,
think what we're trying to ask is there a way to eliminate them versus making them higher? Like is it a matter of just cutting out that mound and then replacing it with flat foam? Is whatever is underneath already there, I guess is what I'm
yeah,
asking.
there's a couple different layers. So you'd have to tear it out
Okay.
probably down to there is concrete down, 4 to 6 inches below that. So you'd have to tear it down to that and then re-pour, the underlying cushion layer and then the top colored cushion layer.
I think it might be possible to remove them and we wouldn't have a matching pour in place
Right.
in there. But if we had some creative way of, making those areas look different, but still kind of match the surroundings, that, and have a clear cutout for each one, it may be possible
They could be
to,
fish.
to fish, yeah, or
Yeah.
still waves, but just not mounded waves,
Great.
something like that. So we could explore, getting a designer out to take a look at it and maybe give us some recommendations.
Cool. And if we wanted to make this an agenda item for next time, an update on this, we could see if folks that you two have been corresponding with would care to comment on that and just corroborate some of the other feedback that we've added, that I'm sure someone would attend and give their opinion on this removal. But my personal take is I think people would be very happy to remove them.
Right. Yep, we can do that.
And maybe, Tony, maybe we get a price on, what it would take to remove and replace without, restarting over really, or trying to
Right.
create something very fancy, but just maybe two color or something that swirled like the ocean, something like that. I don't know.
Right.
I mean, I'm not a designer, but I'm trying to figure out a way to make it feasible, both time-wise and cost. So I know
Yeah.
we have some money left over in the playground fund that wasn't spent yet. So
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely we can get pricing for that. For depending on what the recommendations are, I guess, on a feasible alternative. Chris was also going to talk about the shade structures before we move on from. I don't know if you're ready to move on from mounds.
Yeah, let's go shades.
Yeah, so the shade sails, I heard there's a lack, the lack of shade is the main concern. So we can't, it's impossible. I can look into, finding locations for additional posts and poles, and then, shade sails if needed, if that's a concern. It is.
I'm sorry, Chris, keep going.
So we just have to map, we just have to map out kind of where those additional poles and then where the shade would want to be directed for those.
I've heard that the complaint is perhaps that the shade sails are too high.
Yeah, okay.
And because if the ringlets are too high, more often than not, they're not covering you. You kind of want the umbrella lower, maybe. Is it possible to lower where the shade sails are attached? Because they seem pretty high.
Yes, that was done for aesthetic purposes to kind of, replicate a ship mask with the sails. So I can look into the specs for the posts to see if they can be lowered or like kind of where those brackets are mounted, if they're, if they can be lowered at possibly. I think they're kind of mounted on the top. I think it's like a, precast.
Yeah.
So you have to replace those poles or, weld on some additional sails kind of, or areas where you can attach, shade sails at a lower distance.
And I am kind of assuming that putting them lower would actually produce more shade. I'm not
Yeah.
100% certain it would, but that's the chatter I've heard, that people think
Okay.
they're too high.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've heard that, I mean, obviously it's to provide shade, but it's also for aesthetic purposes for like the ship mask. But yeah, we can look into that too.
I think
Right now,
sales also come down quite low on ships, so.
Yeah,
We can, yeah, yeah, it sounds like something we could definitely explore. There might be an easy solution to just weld on some new eyelets on the
Yeah.
masts and lower the heights. So yeah, yeah, I mean, if that's something, it sounds like, I mean, if that's something you'd like us to look into, we can. And
I think that'd be great, assuming that lowering it would actually increase the shade.
yeah,
yeah,
right. I
I
mean,
think- I
that
think it
seems
would,
to make
but
sense.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
At least at midday or not at midday, when the sun is kind of lower in the sky.
Is there a way to find that out, Chris? Since you're an engineer, is there a way to figure out where the sun goes and if lowering it would make a significant impact? Because I know everybody's, has a lot to do. So unless this is a top priority, I guess, for this committee, I'm just wondering if we should start with if it would even make an impact, like Charlie
Yeah,
was
I mean,
saying.
I can go out there at different times of the day, kind of see where the sun's hitting the strongest, and we can do. I've seen these shade sails at parks by my house, and they're often at different angles.
Yeah.
As kind of in preparation for where the sun is going to be. The trajectory of the sun at certain times. Usually it's between 2 and 5 is kind of the hottest area time of day where I live. So they're kind of angled at where the sun is going to be at that times. So it's winter, but so I can look into that and see and then kind of see what areas we want to protect. So it would just be over that new kind of, I mean, the area where they're over now.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient. That's where most people are hanging out and
Yeah.
feeding babies and eating their snacks, because that's where all the benches are.
Yeah. Yeah, I can look into that. I kind of like a shade investigation study.
This is a good time to be talking about this type of thing because, like I mentioned earlier, we're just before budget, sort of the start of the budget process. So, as part of our ongoing maintenance work, small projects like this, we could ask for funding along with our other CIPs. So we can, it's a good time to do it.
Related to that, is part of the request from the community that we look at. Related to the request has the community asked that we look for more shade, like more structures? And do we need a kind of quote of what that would be?
The folks that I've talked to in my own experience has expressed frustration with shade in general. So I think you're probably onto something. I think I feel it's sufficient to maybe look into the existing shade structure, see if it could be modified as a first step here. And if this was an agendized item, next time we could invite more people and have a larger discussion about it. Yeah.
And each shade sail, and these ones are triangular, so need at least 3 posts. And the bid that came in, they're about 8,000 per sail with the 3 posts. That's what it came out to be. So I'm guessing now it's probably between 8 to 10, maybe, for an additional sail. Maybe a little cheaper because you already have a couple posts out there. They can maybe, but that's kind of a general area. How much they cost.
Great.
Thanks, Chris.
No problem.
Thank you, Chris. Tony, was there anything else on the community park?
No, that's it. One thing that I did notice, and I didn't catch this before, but we've talked about at the playground or in the park having a notice board. One thing I registered today is that there is actually a notice board out there. It faces the basketball court next to the playground. So yeah, that's related to the playground. Yeah, we do have a notice board that we could use. Right now, the ranch has their signs up on it, so they use it. But we might be able to look at using it and see how effective it is for some of the notices that we want to put up.
That's awesome. I think the first one that maybe we could do is just information on how to contact the city about a safety concern or just feedback overall as a test. And then we could let Beth know about this and see what she thinks and others.
It's in process right now.
I see.
So part of the website is being redesigned to make it fit people giving input back. So right now, the old website or the new old website, the newer website isn't set up yet, but it's in process. And I'm hoping that by the next Belvedere Breeze, that there will be an article in there that would have a link to the new area for this. But now that I'm thinking about it, it's great to have this committee because maybe I'll send you what we're thinking of having there and you can give me your input to see if it meets the needs.
Great.
And then we'll be able to finalize it and get it up on the website.
That's perfect. And I think that's great to get it into the Breeze, but there's many.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but then we can take the Breeze
Yeah.
article and put it
Okay,
up on
perfect.
yeah.
It was pointed out that, I think it was our last meeting, or maybe it was some other discussion that, with some of the people who use the parks, that they're not Belvedere residents, but they're Tiburon residents. So they might not get information that way, which is why we wanted to do this sign. Okay, awesome. Any comments from the committee on this item? Are there any comments from the Zoom platform?
There are not any comments on the Zoom platform.
Any comments from the room? No, okay, let's move on. Thank you so much. Oh, Jane.
Sorry. So because we put up coyote signs, I actually have one here somewhere that I have to put up. And I just thought of it because Christina is excellent at this. So the QR code takes you to the form.
Yeah.
And we could do the same kind of thing
Perfect.
for the playground so that they just do the QR code, takes you to the spot.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Yeah, people would love that.
okay.
Great. Moving on, update on the policy amendments. Tony, would you like to guide us through this?
Yeah. So this was some changes that were made to the administrative policy manual relating to this committee that have been talked about for some time and now have been approved by council. And it's quite simple, really. Previously, the policy was to have 2 reports delivered by this committee to city council per year. And seeing as there are only 4 regular meetings a year, it made it quite a tight schedule for getting these reports to city council. And it seemed like one report was an update on priorities and the other report was a recommendation on priorities. And it seemed like they could just be delivered at the same time. So there was a change in the policy manual to make that happen. So now at the date is the end of February, 1 report by the end of February. The other change in there was the schedule of meetings. The previous guidance on meetings was quite restrictive. It singled out 1 week of 1 quarter that a meeting should take place. I think it said the 3rd week of each fiscal quarter had a meeting had to take place. And it didn't give us much flexibility for scheduling. So the language was changed to just make it much more broad and say 1 meeting per quarter. And that would allow us to switch months and weeks for when that can happen. The other change was some language related to kind of the introduction to the committee. In the introduction to the committee, and this came at the city council meeting from our liaison, Jane Cooper. The description of the committee members was, if I remember correctly, people from the community with an interest in landscaping, which, was quite, again, a little old fashioned, maybe a little simple. So that was broadened to with an interest in parks and public spaces, or public open spaces, I think it was. Yeah, so there was that. And the final thing was just kind of an odd requirement for the city manager to appoint a secretary for the committee, which nobody understood why that was in there in the first place. So that was just changed to allow the city manager to appoint a secretary if they felt it was needed. And that's it.
Thank you. Any comments? No, I read through them all. They seem very reasonable, and thank you for taking care of that. Are there any public comments on this? Christina,
No public comment on Zoom.
from the room? No, great. Let's move on. Okay, last of new business, we discussed holding an outdoor meeting. I think this was 2 meetings ago we discussed this. Do you have anything prepared, or I can kind of riff here, Tony?
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about this idea. I think it had been done in the past, maybe Jane, but and I know that there have been I know there's been like meet town council somewhere in public spaces and chat with your blah, blah, blah. But I thought it'd be kind of neat to,
Oh, you mean the coffee? Like
yeah, the coffee chat. Yeah. Have some meeting where we say, and this is actually, you know what it's stemming from? It's stemming from the barbecue, where we were just chatting with people in an informal thing in a park. Like this, this is not a park. So it might be nice to try one as a trial run, like meet outside and we pick an area that we're going to like walk through. Could be the parks, could be a couple of the lanes, could be the strip. I have no idea, but maybe we could pick like a time frame to do this. And I don't know if, I know weekends are often hard for me, but also in the weekend mornings, I also am looking for things to do with my kids personally. So I wanted to see if the committee had any thoughts. Do we think this is a good idea? It could be neat if Jane, you were coming too, and then we could just chat with people about maybe if we had a playground focused one near this discussion, we could get feedback from people around the playground. So that was the motivation for this item.
So to be clear, this isn't a outdoor of our 4 meetings. This is not having one of those. This is a
Correct.
informal, not a meeting, but a meet up.
Meet up with the Parks Open Space Lane Committee and their designated liaison, and hopefully Tony and maybe other people.
Yeah, I think whenever we have 2 or more members, it becomes a meeting. So we'd probably have to post an agenda, and which could be as simple as,
Go on a walk.
sort of, greet and go for a
Okay.
walk. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, technically it would be a meeting, but a meetup.
Would it have to have Zoom participants if we're walking around? No. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. I can check though.
I was just thinking when you were saying that though, that it could be maybe the kickoff for the brooms on
Yeah.
the lanes. Like we could give people a broom and maybe we figure out a couple of lanes that we want to use. And I know McLean still has the place where you can click the broom in. And obviously I think the spring or summer would be a better time of year.
Yeah.
And maybe by that time, we could have designated certain lanes and gotten those, so they'd be there,
Ready to be clicked
ready to
in.
be clicked in.
So
So it
cute.
would be like a dual thing, get people on the lanes, talk about the need to keep them up and
Yeah.
clean them as possible, and the whole thing. It could be a fun way to
Okay.
pull it together. Anyway, it was just a thought.
Okay, so maybe we can do this in April or May or something like that. April, let's target something around that.
have a meeting in March, right?
Okay, would we want to do it,
So I meant
plan it?
have it be on the agenda for March so that we finalize, we'd have to
Okay.
plan it earlier, but finalize it for some point in April or May.
Great, yeah, so let's put it, I'd love to put it on the agenda for next time, but pencil in mentally.
Yeah.
Sometime in April or May. Okay. Any further comments?
On Zoom.
Okay, great. In the room? No. Fantastic. We are now on future items, suggestions of possible items to be placed on agenda of upcoming meetings. I've taken a few notes. I know Tony probably has too, but does the committee have any agenda items that they'd like to add for future meetings?
Was there, and again, I wasn't at the special meeting, was there discussion on the tree replacement? Is that still happening? Is that, I know we suggested a species and tossed it up and around and whatnot, and I wasn't sure where that landed.
We have not had any developments on that. No, but yeah, that's something we can put on the list for a meeting to discuss. Where we left off on that was the committee had approved or chosen a species of tree, and then it kind of was pointed out to us that that species was very big and would ultimately end up blocking people's view from across the street on San Rafael Avenue. So it was probably not an appropriate species. And yeah, that's kind of where we left off.
I mean, if we want to pursue getting a tree back there, if we just want to abandon it, maybe that's a separate discussion. But I think somebody just pointing that out doesn't mean we should necessarily abandon that conversation, given there's 90-foot redwoods right behind that as well. And frankly, that tree would be below grade. Those are my thoughts. We should get that back on the agenda. We lost a little steam there. You know, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, and the second best time is today.
Yeah, I guess my only question is what would be the purpose of, I know we took one down that was infected, you know, in
Oh.
bad shape, but I was just curious.
Yeah, and then that was kind of my point on if we don't want to do it, it's fine, but I think we shouldn't just let it go into the abyss.
Oh, got
I
it.
think since I've been on the committee in 2 years, we've removed 5 trees from Community Park. And so my general
Right, I think that's a
question
great
is,
idea.
hey, let's discuss if we want one, and if we do, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, something we can definitely discuss. You know, do we want a replacement tree at that location? Yeah.
Could we have some potentially more acceptable tree varieties with a picture or two for next time?
Proposed. Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Is that all right?
Or as Nick is saying, maybe the location needs to be looked at because the other 3 trees, I think that you're talking about by the basketball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a better location
Than that,
than that so that it doesn't interfere with the redwoods.
totally.
Yeah.
And that area is, might be worth going back and relooking at.
Yeah, it's a lower traffic area. It's right next to a road. Just I guess instead of abandoning the tree replacement.
Yeah,
know.
options for different trees in different locations so that we're not tied. I like that idea.
I think it's
That's maybe
great.
a future item.
Yeah, I love it. Do
Cool.
we have any other items that committee thinks about adding? Okay.
So I can run through what I have. We've got the playground discussion, so continuation on that. Sunscreen stations, an outdoor meeting approval, and tree species and placement locations.
Yeah.
And
And I imagine
that's-
we would have the survey of the lanes to look at, but that's probably old
Right.
business.
yeah, right. Yep, but I'll make sure it's on there for sure.
Tony, one other thing, this is a old business future item as well. Was there any update on the moving the doggy bag dispenser when you first pull in on San Rafael Avenue?
Yes, and so I spoke to Tiburon, town of Tiburon, about moving it to their property. And they were amenable to that. So
Cool.
we just need to find a location probably closer to the bench that was moved. Or the trash can that
trash,
was moved
yeah.
next to the bench. And yeah, we just haven't got to it
Yeah.
basically to move it over there. But
Just-
Nice.
All good. Just looking for an update. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, one more thing on mine that I just wanted an update on. Is there still a drinking fountain going into Land Company Park? Did I imagine that?
So we heard from a resident who was sort of on behalf of somebody else was saying that they would like to donate a drinking fountain for Land Company Park. Communications there was some communication with Jenna about what type of drinking fountain. And I can see where we left off on that, but
Yeah, just curious more than anything on
Yeah,
where that
yeah,
stands.
no, that's I'll follow up on where we left
Cool.
off with it.
Does the public have any suggestions, Christina?
No suggestions at this time.
Anything from the room? Okay, we're now on our final item, the open forum. This is an opportunity for any citizen to briefly address the Parks Open Space Committee on any matter that does not appear on this agenda. Upon being recognized by the chair, please state your name, address, and limit your oral statement to no more than 3 minutes. Matters that appear to warrant a more lengthy presentation or committee consideration may be agendized for further discussion at a later meeting. I'll open it up to the room. No, I'll open it up to Zoom.
No open forum on the Zoom.
Move to adjourn.
You're so excited.
Been waiting 2 hours. Move to adjourn. Any movement or motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thirded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yeah.